I've always believed in nutrition and herbs. Super Male Vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Sourced from powerful organic herbs, harvested around the planet, and then concentrated for maximum potency.
I just received my Male Vitality about 3 days ago, and I must say, that is some good stuff.
After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic Super Male Vitality formula. Super Male Vitality by InfoWars Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose.
I jump out of bed ready to fight these criminals every day. I look forward to waking up and taking my Super Male Vitality and getting the day started.
It's not just the Super Male Vitality. All the products at InfoWarsLife.com are simply amazing. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality and other powerful products from InfoWars Life. When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. No one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. Just one of the key compounds, BioPQQ, is backed by major clinical studies. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? We now have the synergistic solution. Secure your DNA force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
The government's Department of Homeland Security is buying up loads of ammo. At the same time, they're restricting civilians' rights to own and purchase firearms. Can you put two and two together? Infidel Body Armor can stop every round, including hollow points and .308 sniper rounds, is reasonably priced and fully legal. But for how long? Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com, spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor. Just won't quit.
In the near future.
When you realize how fake it all is, the football, the basketball.
Alert. Security alert. This is Homeland Security. Analysis. InfoWars building independent media operation.
Let the worst people get controlled and tell us that we are the ones responsible.
Prime Directive. Discredit Alex Jones.
Jones is the wildly popular conspiracy theorist.
A popular conspiracy theory talk show called InfoWars.
Alex Jones is now in an Austin jail.
These people are assaulting us.
Targeting of patriots engaged.
They are never going to stop. They're never going to deviate from their program until we stop them.
Block free iPhone app at Infowars.com. Block free podcast and video feed. Imperative. Destroy Prison Planet TV.
You gotta set your eye on the enemy, not worry about what propaganda they put out. Intellectually, it's begun. You can feel it.
Coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
In this present crisis, government is not the solution to our problem. Government is the problem. From time to time, we've been tempted to believe that society has become too complex to be managed by self-rule. That government by an elite group is superior to government for, by, and of the people.
The Alex Jones Show, because there is a war on for your mind.
Hello, me. Meet the real me and my Misfits way of life.
All right, welcome back to the Alex Jones Show. I'm David Knight on this Sunday, October 12th, 2014. We're talking about, of course, Ebola. We have had the second patient in the United States. The first time it's been contracted within the United States. Of course, the second time it's been contracted outside of Africa, the other being a nurse as well. I thought it'd be interesting. We're going to go to your calls in just one moment. We're going to go to Dallas Ebola Watch. That's what the caller calls himself. But I wanted to talk about the first nurse that came to the United States with it that was brought in with Dr. Kent Brantley. Her name was Nancy Wrightball. This is an interview from Science Insider on October 2nd. They asked her, how did you become infected? Because we're told that all the protocols were followed. We're told that by the people who were in the hospital. Of course, the CDC is saying, well, you didn't follow one of our protocols. While they stand down at the border, they refuse to close the border. You know, isolation is the first protocol that should be followed. But going back to Nancy Wrightball, she says, I don't really know. She says, nobody's sure, least of all me. I never felt like I was unsafe. I never felt like I walked into a situation where I was being exposed. I was on the low risk side of things. I was never in the crisis or the Ebola center. I was always on the outside. I made sure doctors and nurses were dressed properly before they went in and out. I decontaminated them before they went out. We kept a close check on each other. She says, we had an employee, though, who was doing the same job I was doing. He got sick. I didn't know he was sick. He didn't tell anybody. He actually thought he had typhoid. The day I started having symptoms, at least a fever, was the last day I saw him. He did have Ebola. He did not survive. She says, I never remembered touching him, although it's possible he could have picked up a sprayer to decontaminate someone, and I could have picked up that sprayer, or we could have touched the same thing. I never touched him. I never touched him. So she thinks that perhaps it was something that they touched intermediately, that he touched something, she later touched it. That brings to mind the reckless behavior that Judge Jenkins in Dallas modeled for everybody when he went to the apartment and said, there is zero risk that I can get it here because I'm not touching a patient. You don't have to touch a patient to get it. And of course, she was on the outside of the Ebola Crisis Center. Of course, Dr. Kent Brantley, who was working there, also contracted it. I don't know what he thinks was the means of his getting infected. But listen, at the time that Judge Jenkins went in, it was several days after the patient had left. I would not feel confident going into that apartment. And of course, the people who cleaned it up 2 days later, went another level above the hazmat suits that CDC had prescribed. But to go into that apartment and then to brag at a press conference that he's wearing the same shirt that he wore into the apartment and hung out with them in the apartment and then drove them in his car for 45 minutes, and he comes to a press conference and says, I'm wearing the same shirt, no problem. He is sending a very reckless and dangerous message to people. Something that, whether he intends it to or not, he does work for Homeland Security. So whether or not he intends this, he is sending a message to people that could very well spread this. The virus lasts, they say, anywhere from a few hours to a few days. And it also is dependent on the amount of sunlight that it gets. And we're going to have a report about that as well. Another device that somebody has come up that may offer some promise on that. But the bottom line is, he didn't tell people that. He just basically said, there's no problem walking into the apartment if the patient is not there. That's not what somebody who worked in the country believes. Let's go to some of your calls now. Dallas Ebola Watch in Texas. You've been holding for a while. Go ahead.
Mr. Knight, thank you. I wanted to break some news that I haven't seen in the media, and it's regarding the pharmaceutical companies that have been contracted by the Department of Defense under Project Biohazard. Technira Pharmaceuticals, on their website, they have information that in January 14, 2014, they began human Ebola clinical trials. So clinical trials of their product PKM Ebola in humans. And yes, that was 2 months, obviously, before the outbreak. Yes. Technira is one of the companies that saw a 23% increase in their stocks. And they're, I guess, basically because they're one of the companies listed as trying to find the treatment for this spontaneous outbreak. And
yes, very much.
Actually listed. Go ahead.
Yes, we're going to have a report on that in the next hour, actually. They not only began trials in January, but they also got a lot of money from Monsanto at that time, and they got a stock option, and that stock spiked 12 days before the Ebola outbreak in Guinea. The very first place that occurred this time was noticed. So there's some very interesting follow the money issues going on here. There's also an interesting contrast and hypocrisy, the way that they're pushing ZMapp as a panacea, as a miracle drug. It works on an antibody strategy. And yet at the same time, these blood transfusions, which operate on the same antibody strategy, are demonized as a black market that needs to be shut down. I think there's a lot of questions that need to be raised about what's going on with big pharmaceutical companies and the government. I'm very concerned that they're going to pronounce one of these as a miracle drug and coerce everybody into taking it.
Yes, sir. Am I still on air? I'm sorry.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I was just wondering if I was still on air.
Yes, you are. Go ahead.
So I'm awesome. I'm so glad to hear that you guys are looking into it. I would expect nothing less from InfoWars. Dallas Ebola Watch is just a small little Facebook page that we started because we were concerned and we were following and researching these things. So Technira Pharmaceuticals, look it up. everyone. They're making money off this. The DoD contracted them to develop, and it's from the Zaire strain, which is odd. Another quick point is that on the CDC website, this outbreak is very, very odd because all of the CDC has a chronological history of the Ebola virus, and every previous outbreak started in one country. This is the only outbreak that started in multiple countries, and the nature of viruses, that's almost impossible. I'm not an expert, but I'm a critical thinker.
Yes.
That's ridiculous. How could it start at the same time in different countries?
There's a lot of questions
unless
about...
they were doing a trial.
There's a lot of questions about the timing of this. Let me ask you before I go to the next caller. You're there in Dallas. You're watching this develop. How do you feel about Judge Jenkins and what he's been doing?
Oh, my gosh. He's either complicit in this or he's just a puppet who's trying to politically posture himself for some further political aspirations, but I think he's an idiot.
My take on it exactly. I don't think we could put a finer point on it. Thank you so much. Let's go to Richard in Texas. Richard?
Hey, yeah, this is always a great show. I've been a Sunday afternoon listener for probably 4 or 5 years. And, you know, I consider myself a constitutionalist, and I would say that the cream of the truth rises to the top, and Alex and InfoWars are a great example of that. I do have 2 quick inquiries about the Ebola. And find it very interesting that even though maybe it has not gone airborne, that it is indeed much more highly infectious than we've been led to believe, and that the World Health Organization seems to have more intense restriction on this than even our own Centers for Disease Control. And with that, I'll leave that to you. I'll just hang up and listen, but thank you so much for taking the call.
Well, I agree. I think that when you've got a disease that is doubling every couple of weeks, that they're looking at if it keeps up the same curve, that it's going to affect anywhere from 5 to 15% of the population in those 2 countries. I think that there's clearly something about it that they don't understand. It's not just the sanitation conditions in those countries or the lack of medical care. Look at the hundreds. It's well over 300 medical workers who have gone, who are using all the protocols and procedures that are recommended as far as the conventional wisdom goes. I just read at the beginning of this segment, Nancy Wrightball, who is a nurse there, saying she had no idea how she got that. Her best guess is that she touched something that a fellow coworker who came down with Ebola had touched. That was the best guess that she could come up with. So there are ways that this is being transmitted that they don't really know because they're not controlling it even within their hospitals, even within their medical care workers. We're going to be right back. We're going to take some more of your calls. Of course, we've had the second person in Dallas now to come down with Ebola, the first person in the United States to contract Ebola within the United States. Stay with us. We'll be right back with your calls.
When cells become toxic, they die early and aging sets in. No one has put together a formula that focuses directly on brain health, nerve growth factors, and optimizing your cellular energy at the same time. Just one of the key compounds, BioPQQ, is backed by major clinical studies. You want the best that's out there at the lowest price anywhere? We now have the synergistic solution. Secure your DNA force today at InfoWarsLife.com or call toll-free 888-253-3139.
The government's Department of Homeland Security is buying up loads of ammo. At the same time, they're restricting civilians' rights to own and purchase firearms. Can you put 2 and 2 together? Infidel Body Armor can stop every round, including hollow points and .308 sniper rounds, is reasonably priced and fully legal. But for how long? Go to InfidelBodyArmor.com, spelled INFIDEL bodyarmor.com. Infidel Body Armor. Just won't quit.
Another major health threat, this one in Toledo, Ohio, where everybody in the entire city has been told not to drink the water.
Ohio's governor declaring a state of emergency.
Did you know that the average person uses about 80 to 100 gallons of water at home every single day? If there's a water emergency, will you be prepared?
Panicked residents forming long lines throughout the day.
We're here at a supermarket in Toledo. You can see the shelves empty where water once was.
To stay safe and healthy during a crisis, you must must have access to safe, clean water. Water which will not be available at your local grocery store.
There's a mad dash on right now to stock up on supplies.
The ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system is a must-have for every modern, independently minded household. Protect your family's safety during an emergency. Go to InfoWarsStore.com today to purchase your ProPure Pro 1 G2.0 water filtration system or call 1-888-253-3139.